Tonight, we break down the 2025-2026 budget and what it means for Jamaica's micro, small and medium enterprises, from tax reforms to financing and banking access. Is it the right formula for growth? And with the People's National Party proposing an asset tax repeal and a corporate tax waiver, is it the time for them to put forward a full alternative? Joining in on the discussion is President of the MSME Alliance, Antoinette Hamilton. This is The Conversation. Welcome to The Conversation, Ms. Hamilton. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you, and thank you for having me.
Sure, no problem. I'm sure that you would have been looking at you would have watched the budget, quite possibly at the edge of your seat. So the question that I want to throw at you immediately is, what was it like for you having watched it? There was some level of anticipation. How did it meet your expectations, if it did at all?
Well, watching both budget debates was a good experience because it gave context in terms of the priorities for MSMEs. In terms of the finance minister's budget presentation, I was actually at the parliament, so I got to, feel and see what was happening. And I was very optimistic when the minister said that, we're a government that listens. I was really looking forward to say, yes, I'm looking forward to see some of our recommendations that we have been advocating for being implemented. Sadly, we didn't get much of that. We didn't think that the finance minister's budget was growth-focused enough for MSMEs. And while there were very good initiatives, we thought that those would not provide immediate relief or enough immediate relief for our MSMEs. A good initiative was the increase in the GCT threshold from 10 million to 50 million. So that would definitely help our micro entities. Those that were already immediately. Those who were already on the $10 million mark and now wondering, whether they will be required to register for GCT. At least they now have an extra 5 million to go before that. So that additional tax burden in terms of administrative work is being removed, and that is good. And I guess they will feel, especially those in the service industry, because they don't really have the input tax credit to offset the GCT. So, and they have to pay on some of them would have to pay on a accrual basis. So they are paying over GCT that some of them don't even collect as yet. So definitely that would provide some relief for the micro entity. But it's really for those that are already in business and already at that level of crossover. So that was a good initiative, although we would have expected a larger increase. But nonetheless, our members are happy with that. Apart from that, there were nothing much else, because when you talk about the microstock exchange, that is going to take some time, right? That's an excellent initiative, but it's going to take some time, and also it would require context, because currently we have the Jamaica Stock Exchange, which in terms of the take-up or the utilization for small and medium entities, it is relatively low for 15 years. I believe it's less than 60 businesses that are on that stock exchange. And so a lot more also needs to be put there in terms of capacity building for small and medium, so that more persons can participate in that exchange. But the micro now, we would want to know how will that be structured, because one of the things that we were discussing with the state minister and the opposition leader on finance when we had our meetings was that a broker, for example, they're in the business of making money. It might be unattractive for them to underwrite an IPO of, say, 10 million or 15 million. So understanding the structure and how that will work in terms of the processes, the policies, and how it will be administered. It's very important for us to really determine if it will be, effective. But that won't happen within this budget period, because we know those type of policy decisions take a lot of time.
So would you be of the opinion that not enough thought was put into her budget presentation?
I wouldn't say overall not enough thought. I think for the MSME sector,
yes,
we were somewhat, I would say, disappointed, because the thing is, we have been putting this out from as far back as November 13th in terms of, for example, the 2-year tax exemption on corporate income tax. That was from November 17 when we were invited to the 10th anniversary of the TAJ. And we also would have put forward the need for the interest rates to be reduced, for the DBJ bank fees to be looked at and removed possibly. These are also conversations that we had with the state minister in the Ministry of Finance. The same conversations that we had also after that meeting with the opposition leader on finance, Julian Robinson. So to see that we went to that extent to share our burning issues to both of them, and the government of the day, which has we think, the most advantage in terms of implementing some of the recommendations immediately, to see that, pretty much none of what we were putting out there was taken up.
Is it none of or not enough of?
Let me say, not enough of, because we had expected an increase in the GCT.
And you got that.
And we got that. But that wasn't the main thing, because the main hindrance to growth for our MSMEs is financing, access to it. And let me explain that, because I think it is worthy of explanation. So over the years, the banks would have funding to on-lend. DBJ has funding to on-lend. When we say access is difficult, what we're referring to is the paperwork, or members would call it paperwork. We're talking about the audited financials.
So help us to understand, the money is there.
The money is there. So it's
so
available.
That's not the issue.
It's not the availability.
But the access is an issue. How to get to it.
And the affordability is the issue. And affordability is the interest rate, because that's the price of loans.
Of borrowing, yes.
Right, of borrowing, interest rate. We are in a high interest rate environment right now. The BOJ has reduced the policy interest rate for 4 consecutive times. And the banks, the corporate banks, have yet to respond. And we're saying we did not hear anything on that. And we have been saying that we need some relief. We need the pass-through to happen, because the cost of accessing funding is difficult. Also, we know that DBJ, for example, is somewhat, it falls under the government, the Ministry of Finance as well. So we're saying, okay, seeing that you have some control of this body, we're asking you to remove the DBJ fees. We weren't looking for you to remove the bank fees, because the banks have to be paid for the work that you're doing. They're the one on lending this loan. So fine, let the bank fees remain. Remove the DBJ fees, price it into the loan, and make the access more affordable. Because the upfront cost to just access the loan is a lot. We're talking about several fees, Several fees, DBJ plus bank, plus audited financials. When you think about a small business, you're looking at a minimum $500,000 for 2 years audited financials. That's a small, to access the loan. So you're talking about $500,000 for example, for 2 years audited, which is required. Then you're also talking about DBJ fees, which average about, say, almost 3%. Right? Plus they have annual renewal fees too, so it's not just the upfront, the annual renewal. And when I said 3%, including GCT, because it's plus GCT, right? And then you have the bank fees, which range from, like, say, 1.5% to 5%. So when you look at all of that, just using 10 million as an example, let's do the math. Say the bank's charging 3%, that's 300,000, right? DBJ, say 2.5%, that's another 250,000. That's what, 550? Then you have the audited financials for 500, argument's sake. That's 1 million 150,000? 1,050,000?
Yes.
Yes. And that does not include the credit report fees, the other little miscellaneous fees, right? So when you think about asking an MSME to find $1 million to access a $10 million loan, to purchase a machinery to increase productivity in their business, to be able to employ people, because once you invest in your business, now you're talking about the possibility of employing more people, right?
Yeah.
So you're asking them to find all of this money to expand their business, and they can't. And so they're not able to grow as fast as they ought to. And that is why we said the budget was not really growth focused for MSMEs.
All right, so we're going to go for a first break now, but when we come back, I'll ask you plain and simple to just give us how would you rate her, how would you grade the presentation, but we'll allow you to think about that. You're watching The Conversation. Just want to remind you, we'll be right back after these messages.
Yes.
Welcome back to The Conversation. Just before we went to the break, I'd asked you to give just a grade. You know, if you were to give a number grade or a letter grade to, preferably the number, to the minister's presentation, what would that be?
Well, you know, we like to be consistent because, you know, so I'm grading her at 5.
5? Sounds like that's just average. Like.
Right, I'm grading her at 5, and I am commending her for subsequently recognizing that some of the key issues weren't adequately addressed, and her expression of her willingness to look into those. For example, the DBJ fees to be removed, as well as meeting with the MSME Alliance body.
So your counterpart, that would be the president of the SBAJ,
Right.
it would seem as though he had given her a very good mark.
Right.
But you're saying that she barely passes. Is it a 5 that's closer to a 6, or is it a 5 that's closer to a 4?
When you look at other things that were mentioned in the budget that were not necessarily MSME focused,
then she's good.
She I think is closer to a 6.
Okay, because I was just about to ask the fact that she had stated that they would have been decreasing, for example, the PAYE over a period of 3 years. Increasing it rather, to a tune of 2 million. That would be 100,000 per year. So that's roughly $2,000 per month.
Yes.
You know, and to the extent that she said that, well, you know, if you put down that money, you can do a down payment on a Probox. What were your assessment of that particular statement, though? As someone who is in business.
I think the statement it was unfortunate. I think she could have better.
Unfortunate? Why?
I think she. All right. So you. Over time, so you're actually within, say, a 2-year span, you're actually moving from 1.5 to 1.6, 1.8. I think we're at 1.8 now, right?
Well, 1.7, closer to
8, right? The truth is that this government, initially when they moved from I think it was about 1 million to 1.5, took a bold decision to do that, and it worked. So we give them credit for that. But $2,000 over 3 years, that's not the best seller for that increase.
It's really $100,000 per year.
Yeah, but it's really.
So what it would appear though, that's keeping in line with inflation, because you must admit that the global economy is slowing down, and it has not been publicly stated yet, but Jamaica is pretty much in a recession. That was a statement that was made. So in light of all of those things, don't you think that you're a little bit too harsh on her?
I'm not saying, I'm not harsh. I just said that the explanation behind the move could have been different.
Explanation.
Yes, okay. I don't think that particular response was the most effective, and that's why I say it was unfortunate that she used that explanation and not a more a different explanation to say, look, we're fiscal discipline, right?
Yeah.
We understand the challenges. We would have increased, we were the government that increased it from the million to the 1.5 to the 1.6 to the 1.8. And we're saying, this is what we're able to do right now in line with fiscal discipline. That would be, I think that would be a better pitch, not to say 2,000, you know.
So do you think, though, that it might be a better thing for them to just peg the threshold, the PAY threshold to inflation? So if inflation goes up, it goes up. So inflation are 10%, something to that effect, whichever is higher.
No pegging for that, because the thing is, and this is a situation we're in now. We understand the fiscal discipline that is required, but you have to also take bold measures to help to stimulate the economy. Then when the government took that decision to increase the threshold to 1.5, that was a bold move. I think some persons would have said, whoa, no, don't do that. And it worked out. Similarly, we're in a situation now where the economy is on a decline. We're actually in a technical recession or a recession. And so it requires some bold and innovative move to get us out of where we are.
So pegging wouldn't be one of those.
So pegging wouldn't be one of those right now, I think. And there are other factors that affect one's purchasing power, because inflation, you might peg it to say, oh, well, inflation, but then there are other factors that may happen that requires more than just an inflationary increase in your salary. So I wouldn't suggest something like that.
So the asset tax now, that has long been a burden on the financial institutions. Shadow Minister Julian Robinson, he proposed phasing it out and introducing a corporate tax waiver for something to the extent of about 3 years. You know, my question, isn't this therefore the perfect time for the government to take such a bold step, you think?
Well, you know, that as I said, from the 13th of November, we have been asking for the 2 years exemption on corporate income tax, because we believe that, one, it will bring new businesses into the economy. More young people will want to start business because they don't have this tax burden to be thinking about, right?
Yes.
Two, those that are already in business, I think, because he extended it to those already in business as well. We were only looking for new, but he extended it to those already in business, but less than 3 years. Those already in business will now have that money that they would have otherwise used to pay taxes to reinvest in their business. So it's helping to deal with the access to financing issue that we spoke about. So it will help to fix that. If new companies are registered, for example, if 20,000 more new companies register, that's almost $500 million that the Companies Office of Jamaica will make in 1 year. $500 million, because it's about 29,500 for company registration, limited company. And if you multiply that by 20,000 new companies, that's more than $500 million. Yeah. So it's tax revenue. But most importantly, when you have new companies being registered, right, you're talking about new economic activity, you're talking about possibility for employment. Right?
You're talking about things that will actually, invariably lead to growth.
Lead to growth, and that is why we were pushing it from that point, from November, to say, well, actually I took on this presidency 29th of October. So we're pushing from November 13th that we believe that something like this would have been growth focused, and it would help to stimulate economic activity, bring more people into entrepreneurship, and, you know, provide employment, etc.
So now, given these particular proposals, do you think, therefore, it is time for the People's National Party to put forward their own comprehensive financial reform that are tailored to organizations such as yours?
Well, I listened to the budget response by Mr. Robinson, and he actually gave us more than what we asked for. He said he's given three years tax exemption, and from corporate income tax. That means once you register as a limited company, you pay no corporate taxes, you pay no taxes for 3 years. you'll only pay if you have staff, payroll taxes and stuff, but you pay no tax on your profits for 3 years. So that in itself is intended to bring new businesses, give birth to new businesses. And he also said that businesses that have already started, if they're still within the 1 to 3 years, then they would also be eligible. So that, right now, we have MSMEs who, when they look at the tax return that you're filing now and they see how much tax they're going to pay, they're like, oh my God. So they wouldn't have to think about that if they're in the 3 years.
So would
that
you
is
say,
more than what we asked for.
Would you say then that the response was better than the budget?
Well, what it demonstrated that they're listening.
As in both sides are listening, or?
The minister, what's his name? Minister Julian Robinson, not minister. The opposition leader, Mr. Robinson, has listened. And I was surprised that almost all the recommendations that we had discussed with him, and just to be clear, we discussed the same recommendations prior to with the State Minister and the Minister of Finance, Xavier Main. Same exact recommendation. So it was good to see that
Couldn't this be a political ploy, though, where he's looking at it from the perspective that, listen, I want to get these persons over on my side, and the government are looking at all the competing priorities that they have, and so they're looking from a realistic point of view that these are our competing priorities, so we're going to have to do this. Whereas you're in opposition, so you're saying that this will sound good to you, so let me say these things.
Well, what I would say to that is that when we had the meeting, there were several other recommendations that we put forward, and Mr. Robinson was clear to say that no, he's not going to do that one, he's not going to do that one. So I don't think, and he asked the tough questions. He said, but wouldn't this lead to businesses closing now and re-registering to benefit? And our response was that, similar to how the reverse tax credit was done, where the IT specialist in the TAJ was able to do their if functions and whatever to find out who qualify. Similar approach can be applied. So once you are a director in a previous company, when they run that TRN to say if then, what's your, Mr. Thomas? Mr. Thomas?
Kwame is fine.
Mr. Kwame. If Kwame TRN 123 exists in the system already, this is not applied to his business. So that's a way, there are control mechanisms that can be implemented in the tax system to find out, to ensure that only new TRN, newly registered business owners benefit. But Mr. Robinson is saying that some existing one will also benefit. But there are our IT community, digital community is they're so creative and they're so talented. They'll figure it out. But I think it is extremely satisfying to see that he actually listened and he did ask a tough question. So I wouldn't say that it would be a political move, because he did ask, how will this work? And he also did ask that in terms of revenue, government revenue, will this not affect the revenue? And our response to him, and the same response we gave to Xavier, because he did ask the same questions, in fact.
So
the same response we gave
Hold the response. I want you to hold the response until we come back from the break. Just want to remind you that you are watching The Conversation, where I'm speaking with Antoinette Hamilton, the president of the MSME Alliance, Jamaica. Continue to stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Conversation. Just before the break, you were about to tell us what you spoke to the government about and what their response was.
Well, it was similar. So they both asked the tough question in terms of how will the government get back revenue if they're giving up revenue. And the response was one, that this is really a bold move, yes, but look at it in the sense that if you have business that can come out of the informal system into the formal system, because they now know that, okay, if I file my taxes, I'm not going to file my returns, I'm not going to pay any taxes, then they'll come into the formal system. So they're able to better participate in the formal economy. Persons who they employ, those persons can file their payroll taxes, so they'll get money from payroll taxes. Once persons have disposable income, you're talking about GCT tax, GCT, which is an indirect tax. So that is one way. The other way is that more companies will be registered. And we spoke about the almost half a billion. Formalization increase.
More indirect taxes increase. And
employment
increased.
And productivity, because what happens is that once you come in the formal system, you're able to access certain benefits that you would not be able to when you're out. For example, there are still certain government, for DBJ, for example, has certain capacity building programs, and you have to have like TCC and stuff like that. You're now able to get a TCC because you're not be paying any corporate income tax, so it's easier to get a TCC. Before, it's somewhat difficult because they have outstanding taxes, and so they don't have the money to pay it, and so the TCC can't get it, and sometimes they have to go and work out payment plan. By the time they do that, the opportunity probably is gone.
So in a sense, then, you're saying that these particular moves that you're hearing about, especially from the shadow minister, you know, on the opposition side, you said those are moves that would help to bolster MSME resilience and competitiveness over the short to medium term period.
Definitely, those are bold moves. Yes, we agree that they're bold, but we believe that they will be effective, because there's no alternative in terms of what is presented otherwise in terms of growing the economy. Remember, Kwame, that we have 2 consecutive declines. All the goods producing sectors, the service sectors, apart from the financial institution,
are shrinking.
Yeah. What does that say? There's nobody buying because they don't have disposable income. The credit cycle helps fuel the economic cycle. So access to credit is important to bring money into the economy. Government spending is important. The government did say that they're going to increase spending by, I think it's 9.6%.
Yes.
However, the challenge with that is that the timing of the spending is now the issue, because we can't leave that to the government to determine, okay, for example, when the Spark program starts, or when the Fort Rocky program starts, or when, because if they start at the end of the budget period, it doesn't benefit the people.
So you're saying, so nothing is wrong with the fact that the government has said that they are intending to increase capital spending. The issue that you're having is when
timing of it is going to be extremely important.
So your suggestion is that they should start rolling out these things
immediately,
pronto,
if it is that they don't have an alternative for MSMEs, because once you roll out this now, you know, MSMEs will still benefit. Yes, certain sectors may not, but some will still, because there will be economic activity. You're going to have construction industry benefiting. You're going to have the distribution, because people have to eat food, whether snacks, whatever it is. You have that type of industry benefiting from all this activity. You're going to have transportation, because people have to go to the different sites, location for this capital activity to drive. So you have the automotive, you know, persons in automotive, so you have activity happening. It may not help some industries immediately, but it will help many others. So the timing of the spending is going to be critical, and based on history, the timing is usually off. Wait to the end of the next budget period, you're hearing about these programs being rolled out.
So ideally then you want to see an outlay of when these spending will take place.
For us to really have confidence that yes, it will be immediate in terms of impact. Because if not, you have to give us a direct initiatives that will impact us.
So tell us now, we hear about the DBJ's proposed reforms that will allow MSMEs to spread out your loan fees, because you were hinting at that earlier, you know, to spread out the loan fees over the life of the loan. And this, in my opinion, could be transformative.
Yes.
All right. But then what immediate impact do you foresee with smaller businesses from this particular move, though?
Okay, so remember, access to financing is an issue. So if a small business knows that I don't have to pay any well, upfront fees to access a DBJ loan, apart from the small bank fee, and I'm hoping it is small. I don't know the range in terms of which bank charge, you know, what rate or the other. But if they know that they only need to come up with, say, 200,000, for example, or 250 to access a 10 million, it's easier than having to find 1 million. So what it means is that they can, the machinery that they wanted to buy to increase production of, say, their soaps, their oils, their turmeric, the manufacturing sector, mainly, whatever machinery they wanted to invest in to increase production and productivity, to employ more people, they can now do that, right? What it also means is that the purpose of the DBJ facility would have been realized because the 2 billion is there for us.
Yes.
So it will now be used for us because right now it's there, but we can't access it. So the ultimate purpose of that 2 billion would have been realized because we're able to access it.
So another thing now, I don't think is something that we have to, well, let me just put that one side. The 2 billion that has been allocated for MSME financing, this includes also women-led entrepreneurs, you know, or entrepreneurship rather. How can we ensure that these funds reach, you know, the right hands so that it can spur what you can call, growth, effective and meaningful growth?
I don't think there's any discrimination in terms of lending to women or men.
Well, you want to spur it, and so
but definitely it would be good if this 2 billion wasn't just for lending, and a portion be for grant funding, because women, we face a lot of challenges. You know, we are mainly the person at home, and we're doing the family work, we're doing the entrepreneurship work, we're doing so many things, and so it's difficult, especially if you're a single mother, to really by yourself grow your business. And so some help in terms of grant funding would definitely, you know, be good for women-led MSMEs because of the challenges we face, especially as single mothers. I'm a single mother myself. I am a MSME, and I can tell you, when I moved from operating at my home to an office, I had to borrow a loan. And so it's important.
So in the capacity that you currently sit now, we understand that the government has committed to earmark a portion of public sector projects for MSMEs. Now, how do you think that we could create what you can call fair, competitive processes that it doesn't serve to exclude, you know, smaller players due to the red tape? Because you started talking about the hoops that you'd have to jump through and all that. How do you think that they can create a fair environment so that that can be prevented?
Well, I know that the public procurement policy is being revamped in terms of the processes, and they're looking to possibly decentralize the data that they have on MSMEs who have already applied. So, for example, instead of going to, so you're going to NAA to apply for a contract through them, the data on you in terms of the TCC, the financial statement, all of those would have already been in a central repository. So you don't have to produce the same information over and over again if you're going to NAA or you're going to a different organization. Each time you go to a different entity, it's the same information that is required. So I think they're in the process, the government is in the process of removing some of the red tapes, and so the true test would be what the new model will look like to see if it will, to determine if it will be effective for us and benefit us. But I know when they issue the request for proposal, they actually put, say, okay, this is for MSME only.
Yes.
So that is a way of ensuring that MSMEs apply. But the take-up is very low now, and that is why the revamping of the public procurement policy was important, because even though they have earmarked it for MSMEs, because of these red tapes, they don't participate. It's a long list of things you have to provide. It's like you're writing I don't know what to call it.
It's almost like they don't want you to take the money, right?
Yes, and if you don't know how to do it, to pay someone to write the proposal for you, you're looking at $250,000. Where they're gonna get it from?
So the next thing that you had touched on, or one of the things that you had touched on, was the whole idea of the micro market initiative.
Yes.
You know, and that piqued my curiosity. And this is positioned to provide equity, you know, for equity financing for MSME. What's your take, though, on whether the MSME space, whether it's prepared for this, you know, and is investor confidence high enough to make this thing viable? Do you think?
Well, in terms of preparedness, no. Because if we were prepared, you'd have a lot more on the junior stock exchange right now. So in terms of preparedness, in terms of, one, there is a lot of education around equity financing, because when someone has spent, for example, a year or two investing in your business, especially without any help from anybody, when you're asking them to give up equity now, how much percent, you're going to have to educate them about the risk of that and the benefits of that, and allow them to make that assessment. You know, so education is going to be key in terms of that. Also, the processes that we would have said would need to be different from what exists now for the junior stock exchange, in terms of whether or not we will need broker to manage that process, because as I did say earlier, I think the brokers not going to take on a project if it's not profitable.
Money,
yeah. So unless it's going to be a totally different structure where it doesn't necessarily need to go through all of the current regulatory requirements that brokers have to comply with to issue an IPO, unless that is the case. But we're yet to see, so I don't want to make any assumptions. We're yet to see how it will work. But if those red tapes are removed, then definitely it would be something that is most welcome, because the junior market, you're allowed to raise 50 million or more currently. So it would help those below that, which are mainly micro and the lower end of small. But currently, as I said, the junior market is there. It could be better, more utilized in terms of number of MSMEs.
So immediately it's not viable, but with the right moves and policies being put in place, then it will become in short order.
Yes.
So in light of all that you have said, though, do you think that the government's commitment to MSME is strong enough, given the competition and the resources with larger industries and all of that, as we ease into the break?
Commitment long term, maybe, because, as I said, if the micro works, the micro stock exchange works, then yes. But I wouldn't say enough focus is being placed on us. I think there is a serious lack of focus on MSMEs, even though it is talked about that we are the backbone. I don't think we're given the attention, and so it was most refreshing to see that some of the initiatives that we have put out there, at least the opposition leader on finance has taken them on. And as I did say, we actually were drilled in terms of how it would work. And so we're happy that we were able to hear that. They adopted it.
So we continue to stay with us. We're going into our final break, where we're looking pretty much right now on the lack of focus on MSMEs, as far as Antoinette Hamilton, the president of the MSME Alliance Jamaica, is concerned. Continue to stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the conversation. Right now, we want to look at energy costs, digital transformation, and MSME competitiveness. So energy costs, have been a significant burden, not just to MSMEs, but to literally everybody. How impactful do you think that the GCT reduction on residential electricity and the prepaid electricity initiative would be for MSMEs?
Well, the fact that this is a business, it's not going to benefit us.
Well, no, but
so,
you started, admittedly, you would have started your business at home.
Well,
and then you would have branched out.
Well, you have a point there, actually, yes. So we do have MSMEs that still work from home. And so definitely it would be of benefit to them in terms of the electricity bill. But we don't want to keep our MSMEs at home because you can't have your... you're not able, depending on the industry you're in, it's difficult to work from home. And we want to fuel the goods producing industry, the manufacturing, those that can export. And that's difficult to do that from home. But in terms of the services, for example, the accounting, the lawyers, the marketers and so forth, they can afford to work from home. So it will definitely help the services industry. But the other goods producing industry, it's difficult to help them because most times they have to be in a physical space.
All right, so we look at the digital transformation initiatives now. Some of those initiatives are just being rolled out, particularly in e-governance or e-government services. How can MSMEs leverage these things for greater efficiency and competitiveness?
Well, we have a lot of education to do. We're going to be partnering with a lot of the government agencies in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce to get the word out to our MSMEs that these opportunities are there. We would have also sent to the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce our own solution to part of the lack of proper records that sometimes contribute to MSMEs not able to access the financing. We have submitted a project called DMAP, which is a digital management accounting project. What it intends to do is to actually give MSMEs the tool, the software, the accounting software that they need to ensure that the records are in one location. It's digitized because it's online. So they can scan their supplier invoices, they can issue customer invoices from it. So we're moving from the manual process to online. So that's the part of the digitization. But not only that, the project is intended to provide them with accounting support because it's good when you can give someone a tool, but if they don't know how to use it, it's still of no use. So what we're doing is we want to give them the software and provide accounting support for up to 6 months. And hopefully we partner with Heart Trust NTA. They have a MSME program where they provide skilled workers to you, and they pay majority of the costs. You pay the workers stipend, and so those talent can be used to help with the continuity of that data entry and that processing. So we want to give them the tools, because one of the challenge, and we're going to be meeting with the head of the JBDC, because one of the challenges that our members complain about is that the grants, DBJ grants, the Biggie and the other grants that JBDC help to administer, they are there, but there are a lot of paperwork. For example, you're giving someone a business plan, but they don't have the money to implement it. Why not give them the marketer and say, okay, marketer, you work with this MSME for 6 months. You manage their social media page. You help them to get out there in terms of branding, marketing for 6 months, and we pay you that. So instead of paying them for the business plan, not business plan, marketing plan, which they have in their head already, give them the money for 6 months, the marketers, let them do the work for the 6 months. The MSMEs will get the immediate benefit of that because it's more presence, possibly increased sales, rather than giving them a paper, business plan, and they don't have no money to implement it.
Do you think that that's something for the government to do, as in?
But they're already doing it. So they're doing grant funding, but they're giving paperwork to our MSMEs, a business plan, a paper. The MSME don't have the money to implement it. It's of no use. What we're saying is, instead of doing that, give me query. What's your name? What's your name? I tell you not to let me use your first name, you know.
Well, fine, you can say Thomas then.
Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas. what we're saying, give us Mr. Thomas. Let Mr. Thomas work beside the MSME for 6 months. The same money you're paying the marketer to do the business plan, is same money you're going to pay them to do the social media marketing for the small business for 6 months, argument's sake, and they're getting the immediate benefit.
So then it's you're thinking
shifting how you do it.
Shifting how you're doing, and you're thinking as far as government support is concerned, then it's very realistic for MSMEs to expect things like that, and as well as specific allocation, for example, government-funded projects in this kind of market?
Yes, because, all right, so if you're giving me, if you say there is grant funding of 700,000, and all I'm getting is paperwork, that's not going to benefit me. If you say there's grant funding and I'm not, we don't have a problem not getting the cash, you know. Give us the actual tool. You understand?
Give you the tools and not the cash. Show you how to fish and not
no,
just
that's
give
what
you
they're
the fish.
currently doing.
Okay.
They're not giving us the cash, which we don't have a problem with. We're saying give us a tool, not the paperwork. You get me?
So
give us Mr. Thomas and let Mr. Thomas work with us. You're still paying Mr. Thomas because it's Mr. Thomas produced the paperwork.
Yeah. So
and then Mr. Thomas will benefit because Mr. Thomas now can use that experience with the client to say, I have helped to grow X amount of MSMEs from this revenue to that revenue because I was responsible for their marketing strategy. I went in and I do this and I do that and I do that. So it's also helping to build the marketers' credibility and help to expose them as well.
So I'm hearing a lot of things though. You know, you're talking about more education in terms of equity, education and support in terms of what you just spoke about.
Yes.
But tell me now about procurement then, because that obviously is going to be a sore point if all those other things were not up to scratch. But you know, what role can say competitive procurement play in spurring innovation and development among smaller businesses?
Competitive procurement.
How does it even look?
I think it's a more transparent process now, to be honest, because it's done online. In terms of the back end and how it is being assessed, we can't speak to that, but definitely in terms of your access to the contract or the proposal, that is online now, that is open and accessible to anyone who wants to participate. So that in itself will provide competition in terms of that. But as I said, we need to remove some of the red tapes and ensure that it's easy to participate. Yes.
Wow. So as we ease to the end of this bit of conversation, just 2 questions. Your immediate reaction, immediate knee-jerk reaction to the budget, did it hit the right notes for MSMEs now, or there were a lot more missed opportunities that you have seen?
Which one of the budgets?
Well, both. Because, well, firstly, you spoke about Minister Williams' own. But so long and short, that missed quite a few. There are
missed a few. She still has an opportunity to rebound with her next presentation. So we're looking forward for her to implement some of the things that she would have missed. But definitely the second one by Mr. Robinson, that would have hit most of the nails on the head for us. And so, I mean, it would be good if even the government can look into some of those and start implementing.
So admittedly, your expectations now going into the next reading of it will be significantly higher than it were.
From the government, not necessarily the opposition, because the opposition would have hit the nails on the head. For the government now, they can come back and say, we're going to be doing this now.
To show that you're actually listening to what you have put forward.
It's okay to make mistakes. We all do. So if you miss something, you can come back and say, okay, I did not get it that way, or I did not understand that this was the main issue. This is what we're going to do, and that's what we're looking forward to.
So lastly, now, you're looking ahead. What are there? Give me 3 policy shifts or interventions that you think you would prioritize over to ensure long-term MSME growth and resilience.
Long-term would be affordable financing. MSMEs don't really need a lot of handouts, you know. We just want to be able to access the financing, the capital that we need to grow. So whether it be seed equity, so the private equity market for MSMEs, we need to work on that. Possibly a bond, like a diaspora bond that a lot of our diasporas probably would want, members probably would want to invest in Jamaica, and maybe a suitable vehicle could be what we call a diaspora bond, where you give them a small return, you know, less than what you get in the market. But the idea is that they're investing in this money that is raised would be put towards the growth and development of MSMEs. So they'll feel like they're participating in the economic growth of the country, and the beneficiaries are the small, micro, and medium entities. And I think that could be something to help with the seed funding in terms of the equity financing, part of it. But definitely the main pain point is the access to financing. Right, that is the main one. The interest rates are high, and we're still maintaining, Minister Williams, that we need the banks to pass through the interest rates to the borrowers. In fact, we believe we deserve that the interest rates be reduced on existing loans as well, because historically the banks have increased the rates on existing loans, and we want a similar treatment for our MSMEs, for our mortgages, etc. Because MSMEs are owners of real estates. We have homes, some for which we work hard and buy. We have mortgages. So if we can pay less for our mortgages, it means that we can use that money to put in the business as well, right? I did a calculation, and I think it was $35 million mortgage at 8% versus 8.5%, and over, I think it was 30 years. And when we did the calculation, you're saving $12,000 a month, not $2,000. $12,000 a month, right? And that is for over a longer period of time. So
there are significantly more areas for the government to innovate to ensure that you are able to spend more to inject growth in the economy.
Because if the rates come down, you know, we can save more in terms of, if we're paying $100,000 for the mortgage, we're now paying $90,000. We're saving $10,000 for the remainder of the life of the loan. We can use that to pay, buy some additional grocery. We can, for our family, or we can use it to invest in the business. We can pay for marketing. We can add it to the marketing budget, and so we can get our business out there. So we can use it, pay the electricity bill for the business. So entrepreneurs are also homeowners. And so even from that, you know, direction in terms of reducing the interest rate on mortgages, that could help to provide some cash flow for us.
All right, so
many. We have to be innovative and be serious about MSMEs.
So long and short, there are significant calls for innovation from the side of the government. So that's it for this episode of The Conversation. We want to say a big thank you to Antoinette Hamilton, President of the MSME Alliance Jamaica. We have tackled the budget, MSME policies, and what real economic growth should look like. Did the budget meet your expectations? Tell us on our social media platforms and join the discussion at CeenTV. We want to thank you all for watching. Stay tuned next Sunday at 8 p.m. Until then, I'm Kwame Thomas. Stay informed, stay engaged. This has been The Conversation.